He waited until after the pediatrician appointment. The baby had a mild rash, nothing serious, just dry skin from the weather. I held her in one arm and a folder of feeding logs in the other, still in my maternity leggings hair, pinned up with a pen. The nurse smiled and said, "You're doing great." I wasn't, but I smiled back. We got home at 3:10 p.m. He made tea, chamomile for calm. That should have been the warning. He said it just as I sat down. My back still sore from the C-section. The bottle sterilizer hummed softly on the counter. The baby stirred in her bassinet, letting out a noise that sounded almost like a sigh. "I've been thinking," he began. Never a good sign. He didn't say we need to talk. He said, "I think I need space for my own clarity." He used words like they were soft objects, like if he wrapped them in enough growth and self-alignment, they wouldn't land like bricks. "I'm not leaving forever," he added. "Just a reset. A reset for us. Us, that word, still plural, still pretending." I nodded. "Because what do you say?" 3 weeks postpartum, when the man who watched you birth his daughter now wants to birth a new version of himself without you, you say nothing. You let the sound of the sterilizer fill the space where your voice should be. He packed a single bag. 1 carry-on. 3 pairs of pants. His minimalist headphones. No pictures. Not even the ultrasound I'd taped to the side of our fridge. He took his toothbrush but left the spare charger I'd bought him just in case. He texted our landlord to say he'd be off the lease. Didn't ask me, just informed. Before he closed the door, he paused by the bassinet. She was still asleep, still unaware that love can be timed. He didn't touch her, just looked, and whispered, "She's beautiful. You're doing great." The same words the nurse said, words for people you're leaving behind. After he left, I stood in the kitchen for 26 minutes. Not frozen, just suspended, half and half out of everything. A neighbor knocked once to return a misplaced package. I didn't answer. The tea he made had gone cold. The bottle sterilizer beeped, then went quiet. The baby cried. I moved like a ghost toward her arms, aching in a way muscles don't explain. That night I lay on the couch, not because the bed was too big, but because it still smelled like him. I fed her at 1:12 a.m. again, at 3:46 then 7. By 6:00 a.m. she was back asleep. I wasn't. I sat at the kitchen table and wrote down everything I could remember from the day before. Time of feedings, number of diapers, his last sentence. Then I wrote one line I hadn't said out loud. He left before I stopped bleeding. They always tell you about baby blues, about hormones, about sleep deprivation. No one tells you about the quiet, the kind that settles in the hallway after someone says, "I just need space." No one tells you how sharp milk smells when you cry while pumping, or how your phone becomes a war zone of silence, or how many women in your life will not know what to say, so they vanish. I told my mother. She didn't gasp, didn't ask why. She only said he's always liked an exit, then made tea. Black knot chamomile, no sweetener. The silence between us was familiar, not warm but known. I began making lists, not of things I lost, but of what I still had, my daughter, my body however broken, my breath, my mind, a bank account with enough for 2.3 months of rent, a name that wasn't his. I didn't plan revenge, I planned continuity. That's the thing no one tells you about betrayal. You don't always want to hurt them, you want to outlast them. By week 2, the baby started tracking with her eyes. She followed the shape of my face in the dark. Didn't blink when I whispered, "It's just us now." Didn't flinch when I didn't finish the sentence. By week 3, I stopped checking my phone after midnight. By week 4, I returned the blanket he left on the couch to the closet, not out of anger but economy. It was warm, and mine now. They say every mother remembers the first time she holds her child. But I remember something else too. The first time I realized I didn't have to hold on to him to hold on to myself. I didn't fall apart when he left. I just reassembled in silence. We met in October. The kind of October that smells like overripe apples and deadlines. A co-working rooftop mixer. I came for the free wine. He came for the pitch deck crowd. He said he liked my laugh. I liked that he didn't flinch when I told him I worked in HR. He said that's the backbone of every company no one respects. I laughed, then paused. He smiled like he knew exactly what he was doing. He always did. The first apartment was tiny, no dishwasher, no elevator. A window that wouldn't close all the way. We made lentils 3 nights a week, shared a Spotify account, and dreams we weren't ready to say out loud. He called me his co-architect, told me he wanted a partner, not a passenger. I believed him. He read Tim Ferriss. I read Joan Didion. He wrote life maps on whiteboards. I filled notebooks with lists. He said we should invest in our future selves. I paid 70% of the security deposit. He promised he'd even it out later. The second apartment had better light, more square footage, washer, dryer in unit. Rent went up. So did our job titles. He became lead systems engineer. I moved to head of people at a startup that thought kombucha counted as culture. We started talking about ownership. A place we actually own, he said. Not just rent, emotionally. He drew floor plans on napkins. I researched schools, even though we didn't have kids. He liked the glass-walled condos downtown. I liked the older buildings with creaky floors and thick silence. But we compromised, sort of. The third year, he got a bonus. I got pregnant. We hadn't planned it, but we weren't not planning it either. He blinked 3 times when I told him, then said, okay, this is big. We just have to stay aligned. That word again, aligned. As if love were a graph, and I had slipped off axis. We kept walking past the condo, the one with the view of the park and the induction stove he always admired. We used to say someday, then soon, then after the baby. He didn't come to every appointment. He said hospitals made him anxious, said he trusted me, said you've always been the grounded one. That was his way of turning absence into flattery. I sent him photos from ultrasounds, forwarded articles about birth plans and car seats. He heart reacted, once replied, love how you're on top of it all. I was, because someone had to be. Week 30. I brought up the condo again. It was going back on the market. We could make an offer, I said. Even just start paperwork. He nodded slowly, then said, let's wait until you're back to work. It'll keep the loan cleaner. I smiled, because I'd learned by then. If I smiled, he'd stop explaining. 2 weeks after our daughter was born, he signed the lease. His name, his account, his signature. He didn't tell me until I saw the confirmation email on our shared tablet. Subject line, your lease is confirmed. Welcome to Haven East. I said nothing, just handed him the baby and walked into the bathroom. Locked the door, sat on the toilet, held my body like a puzzle I didn't know how to reassemble. The first night he moved in, he posted a story. Just the view. Hashtag clean lines fresh start. I watched it at 2:11 a.m. while nursing. My nipples cracked. My eyes didn't. Laura showed up 2 weeks later in his tagged photos. Same view, same mug I bought him last Christmas. I knew her. She used to laugh too hard at his jokes during work happy hours. Used to compliment our vibe like it was decor. Now she was standing barefoot on the balcony I once said felt like breathing. I didn't call, didn't rage text, didn't even block him. I muted, unfollowed, unsubscribed. From the person I used to plan dinner with. From the version of myself who thought being reasonable made me safe. Everyone talks about how betrayal feels. Almost no one talks about what it changes. How you sit in a room. How long you hold eye contact. How you say I'm fine and mean you won't get a second chance. It wasn't the leaving that broke me. It was that he'd been preparing to leave long before he opened the door. And I'd been too focused on keeping us aligned to see that I was being written out of the story I helped design. I wasn't angry, not yet, but I was awake, and I was watching. My mother didn't say, I told you so, but she also didn't say, I'm sorry. She just opened the door, moved a pile of books off the guest bed, and handed me a set of folded towels. There's soup in the freezer, use the good olive oil. That was how she said, stay as long as you need. For the first 2 weeks were a fog of formula stitches and logistical math. How many ounces? How many diapers? How long between feedings? How long until I was technically allowed to carry a car seat without tearing something inside me again? Every day had too many questions and not enough answers. I cried once, not when he left. Not even when I saw Laura post a photo of their Sunday reset with a background I knew too well. No, I cried when the baby's bottle rolled off the counter, cracked and spilled 4 ounces of carefully prepped milk across the floor. It was 3:12 a.m. I was barefoot. The tile was cold. My back screamed when I bent down. I held the empty bottle and thought, I don't want to do this alone. Then I stood up, cleaned it, and started over. My mother never hovered, but she watched. Once she passed by the bathroom and saw me standing in the mirror shirt, half lifted, examining the incision scar. She didn't knock, didn't ask, just left a bottle of arnica oil by the sink and kept walking. That was her love language, provision not pity. She'd been alone too, left when I was 7, raised me on shifts and toast. She never cried in front of me, never missed a payment, never remarried. You don't need closure, she once said. You need stability. At the time, I thought it was cold. Now it sounded like gospel. Every morning, I woke at 5:45, not because I had to, but because my body was reprogrammed. Baby fed at 6, burped at 6:20, back to sleep by 6:45. Then it was my time. I'd make a cup of instant coffee, prop my laptop on the windowsill, and start fixing other people's resumes. People who were laid off, people who were pivoting, mothers like me trying to re-enter the workforce with gaps and guilt. It wasn't glamorous, but it was quiet, and I needed quiet more than I needed applause. I stopped wearing makeup, stopped answering messages that began with OMG. I just saw what happened, are you okay? I wasn't interested in broadcasting grief, only building distance. Every week I made a new list. How many clients I'd helped, how much I'd invoiced, what I'd spent, what I'd saved, how long until I could live without asking for help. At night when the baby slept, I watched real estate videos. Tiny homes, Scandinavian design, Montreal condos, tiny kitchens optimized for usefulness. Not because I was dreaming, because I was studying. One evening I found the listing, a unit, not his but close. Same building, same layout, different floor, $729. Out of reach, but not unimaginable. That night I asked my mother a question I hadn't asked since I was 15. Do you think I'm practical or weak? She blinked, poured tea, sat across from me, then said, you're just quiet. People mistake that for weakness. They always have. I didn't reply, but something inside me moved, like a lever finally unjammed. That week I opened a new notebook, wrote 3 words on the first page, exit, rebuild, return, then turned the page and started the plan. The first invoice I sent was for $120. Resume rewrite for a woman named Tony. Laid off after 12 years in retail, single mom, 2 kids, no college degree. She signed her email thanks in advance. I hope I'm not too late. I didn't charge her full price, but I charged something because I needed to prove to myself that what I offered still had value. 3 weeks later, Tony got interviews. She forwarded me the thank you note she wrote to her new employer. Subject line, starting over stronger. I saved it, printed it, taped it above my desk, which at the time was a foldable table next to my daughter's crib. I called it my rebuild fund. Every client, every invoice, half went to bills, a quarter to savings, the rest quiet accumulation. I didn't buy clothes, didn't subscribe to anything. I didn't even replace the baby monitor, even though the screen cracked. I learned to listen instead. By month 4, I had 7 regular clients, all women, all in transition, some post-layoff, some post-divorce. Some had been mothers too long to know how to talk about anything else. They came for resumes, but stayed for something gentler, something quiet, something steady. There was one Mallory, 39, MBA ex-corporate, laid off during parental leave. Husband filed for divorce mid-breastfeeding. I wasn't even allowed to rage, she said. He timed it too well. I remember looking at her Zoom square. Both of us holding sleeping infants. Neither of us cried. We just sat in the silence. Let it be a kind of understanding. After that call, I opened another tab, typed how to buy property through LLC, female founder structure. That same week, I called Jordan, not a flashy lawyer, no assistant, shared office. Always replied with noted, or yes, we'll check. But he knew how to keep things clean. Are you trying to sue him? He asked. No, get custody I already have full. So what do you want? I paused, then said, I want my name on something again. We set up a holding LLC, nothing connected to me directly, name North Lattice Holdings, incorporated in Vermont. primary function acquisition, and management of residential real estate. That was all. Clean, quiet, reversible. Next came the property search. Not to live in, not yet. Just something close enough to him, to remind me of the dream I got erased from. I found 2 units, one new construction, too obvious. The second renovated corner unit, same building Jason had moved into, same floor plan, different wing, price $710,000. Seller a management fund cycling inventory before Q4. Translation, they wanted to offload quietly. I didn't make the offer yet, but I called the agent, asked for paperwork, said I was representing a client. Used Jordan's name as legal point. The agent didn't blink, said it was available, asked about preferred closing date. I said 30 days, maybe less, then hung up. I didn't breathe for 10 seconds, then went into the baby's room, picked her up even though she was sleeping, held her against my chest like armor, whispered, "We're not going back, but we're not staying here either." That night, Jason posted another photo, a mirror selfie, Laura behind him smiling. Caption, "Grateful for what clarity brought me." I didn't comment, didn't screenshot, didn't tell anyone. But I opened the LLC dashboard, clicked Add Officer, typed Emily Carter, and then minimized the tab, because this wasn't about showing anyone. This was about taking back 1 square foot at a time. I didn't want his life, just the space he built it in. The photo that tipped me off wasn't dramatic. Just a mug, stoneware, beige, sitting on a windowsill in the morning sun. Laura had posted it with the caption, "Stillness, finally." But I knew that sill, knew the angle of light, knew the metal rail 2 inches from the glass. It wasn't just similar, it was the same unit Jason and I used to stand beneath every Sunday and say one day. I zoomed in, then opened our old Dropbox folder, searched condo view reference, found the photo I took 3 years ago. Same view, same corner, same building. I didn't cry, didn't panic. I just opened a spreadsheet, created a new tab target property. A week later, I called Clara, an old friend who now worked as a real estate analyst for a boutique firm. We hadn't spoken in almost a year. She picked up on the second ring. "Is this a professional or personal call?" she asked. "Both," I said, "but mostly strategic." She laughed. "What's the address?" Turns out the unit Jason was living in wasn't owned. Not by him, not by Laura. It was a short-term executive lease. He was trying it out. The property belonged to a fund that rotated corporate tenants every 12 to 24 months. No mortgage, no down payment, no roots, of course. I waited a week, then asked Clara a second question. If a buyer made a cash offer, no contingencies, would they consider it? She didn't answer right away. Then depends on timing, depends on how quiet you want to keep it. I want it silent, I said. Ghost purchase level silent. We involved Jordan. He moved fast. The LLC we'd created months before North Lattice Holdings submitted the letter of intent with minimal details. Clean banking records and a verified funding source. Jordan drafted an NDA clause into the purchase agreement. Closing date 21 business days, no press, no shared records until post-sale. The fund accepted. No counteroffer, no delay. They probably thought it was just another shell company in the market for long-term rental income. They weren't wrong, just not in the way they assumed. During escrow, I reviewed the lease Jason had likely signed. Fixed term 12 months. Early termination clause, 60-day notice or financial penalty. Lease non-transferable without owner approval. That meant one thing: the day the deed transferred Jason would be living in a unit that now answered to me. I didn't celebrate, didn't drink, didn't text anyone. I just held my daughter now, almost 9 months old, and whispered, "We're not just surviving anymore." Laura posted another photo, this time a charcuterie board, cheese, olives, grapes sliced down the middle. Caption, "Our safe place." Nothing beats building together. I saved it, not for pettiness, for documentation. On the day of closing, Jordan sent me one sentence confirmed. Title officially transferred to North Lattice Holdings, 3:14 p.m. No champagne, no flowers, just a clean PDF, 1 square foot at a time. Jason still didn't know, and I had no plans to tell him, not directly, because some messages don't need a sender, just a signature. That night I stood on the opposite side of the street, looked up at the building, his window lights on, movement inside, a shadow. a life I used to orbit. Now a name I owned on paper. I didn't stay long, just enough to see what I needed to. Then I walked away. No one saw me, but that didn't matter because the walls knew. He left for clarity, and I bought the place he went to find it. The email came on a Wednesday. Subject change of ownership unit 5C, sender building management operations. I wasn't copied, but I knew exactly when it would land. Jordan had confirmed the timeline down to the hour 3:00 p.m. PST. Automated, professional, legal. The email explained, effective immediately. The ownership of Unit 5C has transferred to North Lattice Holdings. Please review the attached documents regarding tenant updates, lease continuation eligibility, and 60-day notice procedures. Just boilerplate, unless you knew what it meant, unless you were living in that unit, unless you were Jason. He called the next morning. I let it go to voicemail. Then again at 2:15 p.m., then a third time. That time I answered. "Emily," he asked, as if we were still in that phase, as if this wasn't months and miles later. "Yes, hey, I got a notice from the building about the unit." Silence. Apparently it changed ownership. I said nothing. He continued, "I just wanted to check. You don't happen to know anything about that, do you?" Still nothing. "Because if this is some weird coincidence, it's not," I said. Another pause. He cleared his throat. "So, North Lattice Holdings is you, yes. Why?" The question hung in the air like an unpaid invoice. I waited a beat, then answered calm as numbers, because I could. More silence. I could hear him shifting, maybe pacing, maybe swallowing pride. "But what does this mean for me and Laura?" "It means," I said, "that your lease has 60 days left. After that, I reserve full discretion on tenancy renewal. You're evicting me." "No, I'm ending a lease. Words matter, Jason. You taught me that." He scoffed. "You know this is petty, right?" "No," I said. "Petty is yelling. Petty is tagging me in passive-aggressive quotes on Instagram. Petty is your caption about clarity while I was still healing." He said nothing. I let the silence expand, fill every corner of his glass condo. "I just think it's unnecessary," he added. "You thought I was unnecessary," I replied. "Now we're even." Laura emailed me later that night. Subject line, really, she wrote. "Look, I know you're upset, but this feels vindictive. We're happy. I hope you find your own peace too." I didn't respond, just archived it. 3 days later, Jason called again. Different tone this time, less demanding, more cooperative. "I just think it'd be better for everyone if we resolved this quietly." "It already is quiet," I said. "You're the only one raising your voice. I'm not raising click." I didn't hang up loudly, just ended the call, clean, final. I forwarded the call log to Jordan. Subject for records only. He replied, understood. 57 days remaining. I didn't feel triumphant. I felt efficient. There's a difference. One is about ego, the other is about balance. I walked past the building that week. Looked up at the unit. Lights off, no motion. Laura hadn't posted in days. Jason had gone private. Back home, I made a new spreadsheet. Title Secondary Acquisition Options. Because once you learn how to reclaim space, you start wondering how much more was never really theirs to begin with. I didn't want to punish him. I just wanted him to remember that some exits come with a return route he'd no longer be invited to take. Jason didn't fight the 60-day clock. Not after the second call. Not after Jordan sent the formal notice of non-renewal. Not after Laura stopped posting. He just disappeared. 2 weeks out, I got an automated reply from the building tenants of Unit 5C have completed move-out, keys returned, no outstanding damage. That was all. No drama, no final message, not even a forwarded mail request. I didn't go there right away. I waited a week. Let the space air out emotionally, architecturally. Then one afternoon, while my daughter napped and the sun was slanting just right, I drove across town, parked at the curb, buzzed myself in, walked past the mailboxes like I had 100 times before, back when we used to dream aloud in the lobby. Except this time, I wasn't visiting a fantasy. I was collecting the remainder of a lie. The unit was pristine. Air still held the faint scent of lavender and bergamot. Jason's diffuser, probably. He always liked his calm curated. I walked barefoot through the open-plan kitchen, past the island we once said we'd host dinners at. past the wall where I imagined hanging her first birthday photo, past the sliding glass doors we once watched thunderstorms through. I opened no drawers, touched no switches, just stood, let the silence say it back to me. Somewhere in this room he had loved me, and then unloved me, gently, neatly, with enough words to make it sound enlightened. I sat on the floor, no furniture, no sound, just the hum of ownership. I didn't cry, I counted. One wall, then another, then the third. Then I stood, opened my bag, pulled out a file folder, inside a single document. Title page occupancy transfer. Intent, Sterling Starter Fund, Phase 1. I signed. The unit wouldn't sit empty. I'd already spoken to a woman named Michelle 41, single mom of 2. Starting over after leaving a 10-year marriage with 0 assets and too many apologies. She didn't qualify for a mortgage yet, but I believed in her more than any lender ever would. I offered the unit under a special lease-to-own pilot I had drafted with Jordan. It wasn't charity, it was reclamation, mine, hers, ours. The day she moved in, she brought plants, smiled wide, said I still can't believe someone said yes to me. I said we only needed one yes. She didn't know the story of the unit. She didn't need to. It had a new one now. That evening I stood at the building entrance one last time, watched as lights flicked on, kids laughed in the background, no designer mug on the windowsill, no captions, just life. I didn't walk back in, didn't keep a key, didn't need to, because I wasn't here to stay. I was here to end. He had walked into this place thinking he was free, that the view meant something new, that the silence meant he wouldn't be answered. But silence can echo, and in some buildings it carries names. I didn't keep the condo, I passed it forward. Because closure isn't possession, it's knowing the story ends when you choose the final line and sign it yourself. The first rental payment from Unit 5C hit the account on a Tuesday, $2,870, right on schedule, automated, punctual, quiet. I logged it under a new spreadsheet, Sterling Start Fund Month 1. There were 2 other tabs, Single Mom Residency, Program Eligibility Draft, and Second Chance Co-Ownership Pilot Cohort. None of them had my name on the front page. They didn't need to. They carried my fingerprint in every cell. I didn't become famous, didn't go viral, no expose, no TED Talk, no inspirational Medium post titled, How I Bought My Ex's Future. Just work, clean and quiet, just women. Applying, asking, believing someone might actually say yes this time. The first mentee I accepted was a 27-year-old barista named Renee, pregnant, no support. She wrote, I don't want money, I want someone to say, I'm not too late. I wrote back within the hour, you're not. By month 3, we had a name. Second form, not second chances, not second hand. Just a reminder that some things get better in their second shape. The logo was simple. The site was minimalist. The stories were real. One client said, you helped me breathe again. Another, you helped me believe that the world doesn't end after someone else does. I never replied with anything grand, just, you did the hard part. I'm just proof it's survivable. Then one night, the message came. From him, Jason. No subject line, no greeting, just, I've been thinking about a lot. I didn't know how to say anything earlier, but I'd like to talk sometime. Maybe understand it better. I stared at the message for a full minute, then hovered over it, clicked archive, moved it into a folder labeled already answered. Because we had talked, he just hadn't been listening. Because we had a life, he just hadn't stayed long enough to live it. Because we had a home. And now it had become something else, something useful, something honest. I never mentioned his name again, not to my daughter, not to my mentees, not even to myself. Because legacy isn't built on what you say, it's built on what you don't need to repeat. On my daughter's first birthday, she took her first step in my mother's kitchen. 3 people clapped, none of them men, all of them necessary. I whispered, we're here now, we're forward. I no longer needed to reclaim anything, because I wasn't the one who got lost. He was. I didn't destroy his future. I just stopped making room for it in mine.